Hello lovely Year 4s, it is Miss Margette here and we are going to be doing some very exciting science this morning. Now I love science and today it's very hands-on. So there are a few things which you will need and I'll tell you what they are and then we'll go through it, and don't worry if you've not got any of those available to you, we will discuss them here with me anyway. Now excitingly we have started a new science topic. And our new topic is called States of Matter. Now you might be thinking, what does that mean, Miss Margaret? Now please don't worry because we're going to go through that together in a minute. So make sure you've got your science book at the ready with a pencil. You'll need a ruler today. And then we'll get started. Okay, so here are the list of things which if you have them, please could you ask an adult to help you source them. But if you don't, please do not worry, as we will discuss them anyway. There's really no pressure with this, guys. It could be what you've got in front of you. So it could be that you've got a drink of water, a paper, and maybe a piece of paper and your snack in front of you. That will be perfect, okay? These are just some suggestions that we've got, but please don't worry. Now, I just want to remind you of a health and safety aspect. Take care with spillages. We've learned about electricity. We need to keep them away from electronic equipment, okay? We've learned about this. We know the dangers, so be very, very careful. I've got a jug of liquid to my left, which I'm very, very aware of, so please be careful. Okay. So a little bit of total recall to get us started. So pause the video here and we are recalling the information that we learned in our digestion topic in the first term. So pause the video and then join me in a minute. Okay, superstars, so we know that this is the mouth, and then we have, shout it out, esophagus. Woo. Okay, and then we've got the liver, the stomach, the pancreas, the large intestine, the small intestine, can you remember the length of both of those? And lastly, we've got the anus. Now, we've learnt these. If you're thinking, Miss Margaret, I don't remember some of those, perhaps you can have a quick search on the internet. Remember to be safe on the internet, and just remind yourselves. Okay. So make sure you've got your science books out and at the ready. Please can you write today's date, the title and WILF, underline it with a ruler where the presentation is still incredibly important. Pause the video and join me in a minute. Okay, so as we always do, we've got a word mat for this science topic. Now we're going to look at each of these words, and then in our reading skills when we come back to school, we're going to explore the meaning of these. You might know some of these already, and if you don't, please don't worry because we will be learning them. Okay, so let's start from the left. We've got solid, liquid, and gas. And then we've got a state change. You might be thinking, oh, what does that mean? We've got melting, freezing, the melting point, the boiling point, evaporation, temperature, and water cycle. Now you might be thinking, Miss Margaret, what does water cycle have anything to do with this? And you are going to be mind blown when you discover more about the water cycle. It's super duper exciting. So let's carry on. Now today we are scientists and we are questioning why things are. Science is fantastic. There is never ever ever a silly question. If you want to know why the sky is blue, then we are going to find that out. If you want to know why something is a liquid, then we're going to find that out. Get your questioning hat on, guys, and let's get this started together. So my first question, a higher order question. Salt can be poured, so does that make it a liquid? Because I can pour liquids, so does that make salt a liquid? Pause the video, have a think, do you agree or disagree? Okay, I'm hoping that your brains are running and on the move because we're going to be thinking about this a bit more. So, salt is a solid and water is a liquid. Now, how do we know that? So although salt can be poured and it takes the shape of the container, it is not a liquid. So salt is made up of lots of small grains, and each grain is a solid made up of lots and lots of particles which are tightly packed together and do not move apart. We're going to explore more about what particles are in a second. Liquids will always have a flat top when allowed to settle, whereas tiny solids, such as salt or sugar, will make a mound when poured. So I am going to show you this using my visualizer. I'm sorry if this glitches. So I've not got lots and lots of salt, so I've got sugar instead. So I'm hoping, what is this? What state of matter is this? Is it my liquid or is it a solid? My sugar? I'm hoping that you're saying the sugar is my solid. Now, can you see that when poured, a couple of them, there is still a mound when poured. However, if we look at the liquid, which is blackcurrant juice because I thought it might be easier to see, that the liquid fills the container. Here's the sugar. I'm not going to pick up the liquid because I don't want to drop it. Okay, so what does this show us? This simple task provides evidence that salt is a solid and water is a liquid, because liquid will always have a flat top when allowed to settle. That's very important. Whereas tiny solids, tiny teeny pieces of salt or sugar, will make a mound when poured. And that's the same for solids. Okay? So just keep that in mind whilst we're exploring the rest of our topic today. I apologise for that noise, that's the boiler going. Okay, so you might be thinking, Miss Muggets, I don't even know what a state of matter is, so please tell me more. Well, today, folks, here is your lucky day. Everything on Earth can be categorised into a state of matter. And these matters we most commonly talk about are solids, liquids and gases. And we can explain the difference between these solids, liquids and gases by knowing what they are made of. Now, scientists have found out that all materials, everything, you and I, everything is made up of these teeny, teeny, tiny particles. Can everyone say particles? It's a great word. These particles are so small that we can't see them with our own eyes or even with a fantastic microscope. So these are teeny, teeny, tiny. So the position and the behaviour of these particles, of which everything is made of, is different depending on the matter, whether that's solid, liquid or a gas. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you what solids, liquids and gases, how the particles look differently in the solid, liquids and the gases. So let's have a look. Here are how particles look in solids, liquids and gas. So on the far left, you can see, well, you tell me what looks different and what looks the same. In the solids, the particles are close together and they're in a rigid structure. They vibrate around about a fixed point, but they are unable to move. So I'm tapping on my wooden table. The particles are unable to move. Okay. Then we've got our liquids. Now, liquids can move around each other. They have no fixed shape. That's why the liquid in my glass was able to take the shape of that glass. But you can see, similar to the solid, the liquids are still fairly close together. There's a bit more space. And then lastly, with the gas, they are spread apart, so moving around rapidly and randomly to fill the entire space. For example, if you think about when a kettle boils, the steam can move around, and it sort of shows us how gas moves, where it can spread apart and move around rapidly and randomly to fill the entire space. Now there is a quick clip that I'd like you to watch which just says what I've said but in a bit more detail. So if you'd like, that will be on in the YouTube comment section, in the description section, sorry. So click on that one and you can watch the video and then join me in a second. Okay, so these are the materials that I asked you to get, but please don't worry if you don't have them. We're still going to discuss these together. If you've got some in front of you, then they are going to be what you're going to be using. Those are the materials that you are using today. So would you class them as a solid or a liquid? What do you think? Do you think the honey is a solid or a liquid? Because it doesn't move around quite like water does. So is honey a solid or a liquid? What about the cup? What about the milk? Have a think. So in your book, what I'd like you to do is draw a chart just like this. It doesn't matter where you write it, just as long as it's underneath the date and title that you've written in your book today. Use a ruler and get this one into your books. And we're going to be thinking about solids and liquids. So what I'd like you to do is, with the materials that you've got in front of you, I want you to categorise them into whether they're a solid or whether they're a liquid. Now, if you're going for silver or gold, I would really love for you to draw how you think those particles might appear in the different materials. Okay? So that's my challenge for you guys. Now, so for silver, we're recalling their properties. Gold, I want you to recall their properties and draw how the particles would look in some of your materials. And then if you really want to challenge yourself, guys, can you research whether jelly and shaving foam are a solid or liquid? But you can do that later on. So we've got our bronze, silver and our gold tasks here for the materials that you have in front of you. And in a minute, we're going to go through the answers for the materials that I had to begin with. Let me know how you get on. It doesn't matter which materials you use, just the ones that you've got is perfect. So pause the video, work through the bronze, silver, gold, and eventually challenge, and then join me in a second where we'll be discussing. Okay, so let's have a look at each material and see if you were correct. Now this looks quite cramped, I do apologise, but I've got my solids and my liquids. Now, milk. Milk is a liquid. We've got a cup. Now it's not about the gas in the cup, it is the cup itself. So that is a solid. An apple is a solid. Baking powder. Remember guys, just because it can be poured, what does that make it? It makes it a solid still. Very similar to the salt and the sugar. Metal. Now this looks like foil. You might be thinking, well, Miss Margette, if say perhaps the silver is melted down, it might become a liquid. This, in this form here, guys, this is metal, it looks like tin foil. This is a solid in its current state. Orange juice is a liquid. Gravel is a solid. We've got honey. Now, what is honey? Just recall, guys, back to what we were showing with the sugar and the blackcurrant juice that I have. Even with a solid, we will still have mounds. There will not be any mounds with honey because it's a liquid. It takes the form of the container. Sugar, we know it's a solid. Water is a liquid. Washing up liquid, guys. Once again, I'm hoping you're thinking the clue is in the name, Miss Margette. It's a liquid. Vinegar is also a liquid, and then we have wood, which is a solid. Now, give yourselves a tick or a little dot if any of those were incorrect, and maybe you could just do a little bit more research into why you think it could be a solid or a liquid. If you are challenging yourself, guys, remember that you are going to be drawing some particles alongside the solid or the liquid to show how these particles look depending on the state of matter. Okay, so a quick pit stop. True or false? We've discussed this at length now. Only liquids can be poured. Pause the video, shout out at the screen. False. Some solids can also be poured. We know this. Even though salt, or as we use sugar, is a solid, it can still be poured. But each individual particle of sand or whatever it is keeps the same shape and volume, that grain. Okay? So salt is a solid that can be poured. And we've thought of other things, other solids that can be poured. Can you shout out a few at the screen now? Excellent. So we have finished. Oh, Ignore that one, guys. Plenary, can you go and teach someone at home everything you have learned today about solids and liquids? Think about the particles, perhaps how they move. Maybe you could try and trick somebody with what you've learned about pouring solids. See how you get on. Now, thanks for joining me today, guys. I hope you've had a great time. Please join me next week when we will have our second science lesson where we're exploring gases. But the week after, we will be back in school. Woohoo! We are so excited to see you all. We have missed you all so much. We are nearly there. Keep going, and then we'll all be back together very soon. Thanks ever so much, guys. Take care.